Padilla?
Madam Chair,
Open up testimony and then
she
not
has an
give us a
obligation
chance
to explain
cross-examine?
why she directly contradicted what she wrote in her report. She says in her report, the Bureau of Prisons' claimed penological interest is in protecting female prisoners from sexual violence and trauma. She just told you the Bureau of Prisons didn't say there was a concern about sexual violence and trauma. Those are directly contradictory, and why are you contradicting what you wrote in your report?
And what are you trying
to say? If I were the father of one of those women, and you decided that my daughter's cellmate was going to be a 6'2" man who over and over and over again committed violent sexual assault, I would say the entire justice system is absurd, and it is clear on your record your political ideology matters a heck of a lot more than the rights of those women that you endangered. I think you're a radical, and I think you have no business being a judge.
In one of the most explosive confrontations on Capitol Hill, Senator Ted Cruz delivered a scathing rebuke to Democrat Senator Laphonza Butler and a controversial Biden judicial nominee, calling out what he sees as a deeply radical and dangerous political agenda. The hearing, centered around the transfer of a biologically male inmate with a violent history into a women's prison, quickly devolved into a heated back and forth, exposing deep ideological divides, contradictory claims, and a stunning disregard for the safety of female prisoners. Cruz didn't mince words. As the nominee sat before the Judiciary Committee, Cruz zeroed in on what he described as a reckless decision that prioritized political ideology over public safety. Let's dive in.
Judge Netburn, there was an opportunity during your exchange with Senator Cruz that you were attempting to offer a response relative to the conditions under which this petitioner was unsafe in the facilities in which she was being held. I'd like to offer you the opportunity to finish that response.
So the facts that were presented to me and what I relied on to make my decision were that the petitioner had engaged in no violence, no physical violence, no acts of sexual violence whatsoever while in custody. All three wardens who supervised the petitioner requested that she be transferred to a women's facility because of her serious medical needs. In addition, the Bureau of Prisons' longtime medical provider testified at a 2-day hearing in my courtroom and recommended that the petitioner be transferred because of her serious medical needs. And the last thing I'll say is that the Transgender Executive Council, which is the body that makes decisions on behalf of transgender transfer requests within the Bureau of Prisons, never said that the petitioner could not be transferred, and never, ever said that she couldn't be transferred because of any risk of violence. What the Transgender Executive Council repeatedly said in denying the request was simply that she needed to maintain her hormone levels. That was the repeated justification for the denial of transfer. But the petitioner had reached full female hormone levels before even being incarcerated. At the time, the district judge in Indiana who sentenced the petitioner requested that she be placed in a women's facility. Her hormones were entirely female at that point, and so the decision by the Transgender Executive Council to deny the transfer request based on this idea that it was only because her hormones needed to be consistent and stabilized, I found was a pretext, but they never once said she cannot be transferred because of violence. It was always based on this idea that her hormones had to be.
Thank you, Judge Netburn. Senator Padilla.
That's
Senator
directly contrary to what your report
you all
said.
have
That is
had
direct-
no. We're going to
no. You're going to follow up, and that's how it works.
There is not.
That is exactly how it works.
Look,
if you follow up, you didn't get extra time, and she just directly contradicted her own report. I'm just going to read her own words because it's exactly the opposite of what she said. Your own report.
Senators, I gave both of you more time to finish your line of questioning. I allowed the witness to finish her. I allowed the witness to finish her response. I allowed the witness to finish her response. That is,
I understand that you're scared of the facts.
I have status chair. Senator Padilla.
Madam Chair,
open up testimony and then
she has an obligation to explain why she directly contradicted what she wrote in her report. She says in her report, the Bureau of Prisons' claimed penological interest is in protecting female prisoners from sexual violence and trauma. She just told you the Bureau of Prisons didn't say there was a concern about sexual violence and trauma. Those are directly contradictory, and why are you contradicting what you wrote in your report?
And what are you
Madam
trying to
Chair,
hide,
I believe
Madam
I have
Chair?
the floor.
No, wait, point of
I
order.
believe
Senator
I have
Padilla.
the floor.
Senator
Trying to
Padilla.
Are you going to let her answer that question?
Senator
or you
Padilla.
don't want her to answer that question?
Senator
You're
Padilla.
afraid?
This
Very
is
much,
a
Madam
cover-up,
Chair.
Madam
Senator
Chair.
Are you
Padilla.
afraid of the answer to
This is
that?
no cover-up.
Are
Senator
you afraid
Padilla.
of the answer to that question?
Senator Padilla.
So yes,
My
you are
time.
afraid of the answer to that question.
Senator Padilla.
Please hold
Clearly,
my
you're
time.
afraid of the answer to that question.
This is
Thank you.
absurd.
Two of the nominees before us, appreciate your patience and your dignity.
Senator Ted Cruz's takedown wasn't just powerful, it was necessary. In a moment when truth was being twisted and public safety ignored, Cruz cut through the noise and exposed the contradiction at the heart of the nominee's testimony. While others on the committee were more interested in shielding an ideological ally than seeking the facts, Cruz demanded accountability. He stood up not only for the integrity of the justice system, but more importantly, for the rights of vulnerable women who were being put at risk in the name of radical politics. His bold questioning laid bare a dangerous pattern, one where activism is disguised as compassion and legal responsibilities are sacrificed for political agendas. In the face of deflection, obstruction, and outright denial, Ted Cruz didn't blink. He defended the truth. He defended women. And he reminded the nation that the job of a judge is not to serve ideology, but to serve justice. And in that hearing, Senator Cruz was the only one who truly did. Senator Ted Cruz didn't back down. He demanded answers. He exposed contradictions. And most importantly, he stood firm in defense of the women this system seems all too willing to overlook. In an era where radicalism is being normalized in the name of progress, Cruz's fiery takedown was more than just political theater. It was a battle cry for common sense, accountability, and the rule of law. Subscribe for more powerful moments from the front lines of Congress, and leave a comment below. Do you agree with Senator Cruz? Should this nominee be confirmed? Let your voice be heard.